Good morning, everybody. I assume everyone can hear me okay, but just let me know if I need to talk louder or whatever. My name is Jordan O'Reilly. I'm the co-founder and CEO of an organisation called Higher Up, which I'm here today to pitch to you guys. I've got about 25 minutes to speak, which is probably good. Keep me focused. But today I'm going to tell you about Higher Up. I'm so excited to have the opportunity, not only to be part of the conference and to have the opportunity to tell you about Higher Up, because I think, I believe, and I'll have to see if you agree with me afterwards, but I believe Higher Up's an example of really fantastic innovation that's creating some really great outcomes, and it's all sort of come about because of the NDIS. So often we hear about, in the media especially, and there are challenges and frustrations with the NDIS. I know those all too well, but it's also an incredible opportunity, and I think it's, for me at least, it really has created an opportunity to build Higher Up, and so I think it's a wonderful example of what I think as a sector we can build from this opportunity. So that's what I'm excited to pitch to you about today. I'm certainly not here to sell Higher Up. I hope there might be people in the room who well, let's be honest, I am here to sell it a little bit, but I hope, and I hope there are people in the room who might be able to use it for themselves. I hope there are people who might be able to see ways of potential collaboration, because we're so totally about collaboration, and if neither of those two, then I hope it might just be an opportunity to share what we think is an exciting piece of innovation. So I'll jump into it because time is short today. Before I go into exactly what Higher Up's about and what it looks like, I've got some sort of slides, and I'd love to show you a little bit about what it looks like and how it's working for people all over the country. But before I jump into it, I might just explain my story and the reason that I'm here today, because Higher Up for me is an incredibly, it's been a very personal journey, and it's really what motivates me is my experience. So growing up, I was actually born here in Canberra, so I love coming back to Canberra. I was actually born in Murray and Bateman, so I'm not sure if I can, yeah, it doesn't really count. People tell me when I try to claim it. I try to claim being born here. And when I was born, I was actually one when my little brother was born. His name was Shane, and he was born with cerebral palsy, and quite a significant form of cerebral palsy, which meant, that was the start of, I guess, my family's journey to today. I grew up till I was sort of about 6 here in Canberra, and then my parents were actually looking for an education system that actually took us to the UK. And so we sort of found ourselves in the UK as a young person, and that was sort of about 1995. Fast forward to about 2002, 2004 in the UK, my brother was going through school, and his disability meant that he required a sort of one-on-one attendant care and support. And I'm sure people here in the room will recognise that feeling of dreading the school holidays, which my family and my parents certainly did, because as working parents, the 6-week school holiday was coming around, and we were having a nightmare as a family, trying to find really great supports for Shane. But it was around that time, around sort of 2002, 2003, that we as a family transitioned onto direct funding in the UK. And I reflect on this with my mum and my sister all the time. We, at that time, had this new opportunity. We had the funding for the first time ourselves as a family. So my mum went out and she put an ad in the local newspaper, and we were able to recruit our very first support worker that we were able to recruit. And her name was Philippa, and she was just the most extraordinary young woman. And with the help of a small agency, we were able to directly employ Philippa in this sort of one-on-one relationship for the first time. And that, for me, was a real, not knowing it at the time, but was the real genesis for this idea of Higher Up, because I got to see the outcomes that our family had directly engaging our worker. We had the most wonderful experience with Philippa, who's still a family friend today, despite the fact she lives in the UK. She's been out a few times to see us. So that was sort of the UK at 2002. Fast forward to 2008. We, as a family, moved back to Australia, and we landed in Sydney. And it had become my responsibility to support my brother in his future. And I suddenly realised that his life was going to look very, very different for ours, especially because he relied on that direct one-on-one support every day. And I vividly remember, sitting there on the couch in the morning, waiting for a knock on the door from someone that we'd never met, who was coming in to get my brother out of bed and get his clothes off and put him in the shower, because we had no control. We were back to a system that gave us as a family no control over the supports in our lives. Not only was it that constant feeling of disempowerment, not being able to build our own relationships, it also cost an absolute fortune, as I'm sure people here understand, and it was incredibly inefficient, calling agencies, not being in control. And so for a couple of years, coming back to Australia, realising that our system was a fair way behind, but knowing that the NDIS was coming in this opportunity that we had experienced in that 2002. So that was sort of an interesting experience. At the same time that we were struggling as a family back in the UK, engaging supports, I worked as a support worker for 5 years while I was studying at university, and so I got to see the challenges for the support workers, and I was that person that was rocking up to a house and knocking on the door with only a name, having never met or the family, or knowing who was on the other side of that door. And oftentimes I was completely the wrong person to be there supporting that individual. And so it was those experiences that got me thinking, surely we can do this a better way. What if we could, with this technology booming all around us, what if we could build a platform that actually created that experience that we had in 2002? What if instead of my mum having to go to the local newspaper and putting a little job ad out, and instead of once we sort of finished the timesheet, my brother and I would walk down to the end of the road and post the timesheets off to the local agency that were helping us with all the tax and the payments and the insurance. What if we could bring all that together into a platform that could connect people seeking support as well as some of the best support workers in the country? So that's a bit of a waffle at you all. I've taken a bit of time there, but that's really to just explain really where the journey came to HireUp. I suddenly thought, having the experience of engaging support workers from the family as well as being a support worker, what if we could create a platform that sort of removed the middleman and allowed families to create relationships for themselves? And that's what we've done with HireUp. So HireUp is an online platform that gives people with disabilities and their families the power to find, to hire and to manage their own support workers and manage their own support work relationships. This slide says HireUp is a user-driven online community of both people who are seeking support as well as some of the best and brightest support workers in the country. And that user-driven piece is really an important feature. HireUp is essentially a tool. It's a means to an end. It's a tool to give people the power to take more control in their lives. Some quick facts about HireUp. We officially launched in January 2015, so it's a little over 18 months old now. We have over 3,500 people registered all over Australia. So you can imagine, for me, just having this family experience and going, what if we could do better with this technology? Seeing it start to light up in South Australia and Victoria and Tasmania and here in the ACT and New South Wales, it's unbelievable seeing how this technology is starting to light up and create that same opportunity we had as a family. And that last point there says HireUp saves around 25% over what users were paying previously. And I'll come back to the cost saving because that's a big factor in this whole thing for me. In terms of how it works, I'll just give very quick 6 steps of how the system works to try to bring it to life a little bit. Number 1, all users create a profile with HireUp. So as I said, it's a user-driven system. Everyone gets started by creating their profile, which tells us a little bit about who you are, and it tells the community a little bit about what you're looking for. The second step in the process, once a profile's been created, is verification, and that's the biggest question that we get asked whenever we're talking about HireUp. Is it's all well and good to be building this online community, but how do we know people are who they say they are, and how do we know that people are vetted and checked? One of the key features and the distinguishing feature of the HireUp system is that we're the employer of the support workers, which is an interesting feature, and it means that we have responsibilities and I guess a partnership with our workers, but we're the employer of the workers. We check everything from police criminal record check, working with children check, photo ID, we check CV, 2 professional references, and all workers have a first aid or CPR qualification. So very similar verification to any traditional agency for workers to join the platform. For participants, we also check a reference because we like to know who's joining our system. So you've created your profile, it's been verified, you then have access to be able to search and to message people in your area and I'll show you exactly what that looks like in a second, but you can imagine, you get on there, you can search a map for people around you, and you can send out messages on the spot. Once the time's right, clients create a booking, or participants create the booking. That's an important feature in that it's sort of initiated by the participant, and then that shift happens together. Really, that sort of steps 1 to 5 is really how we think about the user-driven nature of it. But I think about step 6 is where the higher up value proposition really lies, which is in the processing of all of the complex administration and the rest of it. Now, we heard yesterday about ways that families can directly employ, do all of the admin and the payroll and all the rest for their own workers. At Higher Up, we believe that's a gold standard. We think that's fantastic. If families want to take that extra step, that's terrific, and we want to support that. But we also know that there are lots of families who go, I actually don't necessarily want to manage all of the admin. I want to manage the relationship. I want to know who is coming to support me. I want to be able to direct that relationship. I want all of that choice and control, but I don't necessarily want to do the tax and the insurance and all the rest. So once an individual's created a profile, they've found the perfect person that they're working with, once that shift has been approved, Higher Up then kicks into gear and I think offers the real value, which is we do the payroll and the invoicing on a fortnightly basis. We withhold tax. We manage all the superannuation for the workers, and we also cover every shift with comprehensive insurance. So that's sort of a quick fly through of how it works. I wanted to just show some slides, and I am racing. Sorry if I'm talking a bit quick, but I'm running against the clock. This is what the system looks like, where you'd go to register. Once you've registered, you land on, and you're verified, you land on what we call the dashboard, which is really just the sort of centre of the site. That's where you can manage your relationships and the bookings. Let's say we were on the dashboard and we wanted to have a quick search. So this is a screenshot of potentially what search could look like. And you can see up here, you can put in where you're searching for, and then down the side here, you can filter for the sorts of support you're looking for. The dream being that as an individual, you can join the Higher Up platform, you can tell us or tell the system a little bit about what you're looking for, and up will pop the right people for you based on shared interests, based on the qualifications, based on experience, based on all of the things that you need. This is what we hope the technology can create. I might just tell a really quick little anecdote about why we think this online community is such an amazing thing. I was actually down at a NDIS conference in Adelaide, and I got up out the front and I pitched to the room, and it was a room full of providers. So you can imagine I finished with the sort of jazz hands at the end, and you can imagine just blank faces. And one mum put her hand up down the front and said, I actually just wanted to say that we live in the Northern Territory, and we wouldn't have been able to come today had we not joined Higher Up a couple of weeks ago. We found a fantastic young OT student who was perfect fit for my daughter. They're actually now out cruising around Adelaide having a good time, and we're participating here at the conference. And for me, I just sort of dropped the mic, and that wasn't a plan. It should have been. It was fantastic, fantastic little interjection about how fantastic this technology can be in creating community. The idea that you can go from the top of the country to the bottom, and you can find someone fantastic to support you in that moment. So that's just a little anecdote about why I think the power and potential of creating community with the technology. Let's say you found the perfect person. Let's say it's this one down here, and we click on that. You then, as someone seeking support, would see the profile of a support worker, and you can see on the profile you can message or create bookings. When people say, when I talk really excitedly about the innovation of Higher Up, the thing that I'm most excited about is just this. Just giving individuals the ability to introduce themselves to one another is a big innovation in this sector. You can see down here, Sarah says, I love to dance, I love music and art, so if you're a bit creative, I know we'd get along. Which is wonderful for Sarah, but I'm not going to send Sarah a message because I don't want to dance. That's not what I'm looking for, right? I might be looking to go to the footy, I might be looking for a workplace mentor. Just the profiles alone, we think creates a really great way for individuals to introduce themselves and hopefully find a really terrific match. If we were to send Sarah a message, we click on that button. This is what the messaging looks like, very similar to Facebook or whatever. It's just a centralised message system, so all the correspondence can be kept in one place. And then finally, a booking form. Once the time is right, once you've got created a a relationship with someone, you can book directly through the platform. So you've got the start and the finish times there. You can set it as a recurring booking if you like. And the second major innovation I get so excited about is just this. Just the transparency around cost. I'm sure people in this room will recognise the feeling where we ring up and you say, how much is an hour of support, or how much is this, and providers just say, we don't know, we'll get back to you, which I think is a huge barrier for self-management. And I think this sort of transparency, we're really proud about the costs and the cost savings that individuals can create through HireUp, but for workers and for clients, we're very upfront about exactly what a shift is going to cost. This, I'm really excited to show you this quick little innovation. This is the HireUp jobs board, which we've only launched in the last couple of weeks based on feedback from our amazing community who said, yeah, it's all well and good looking at profiles, but we'd love to be able to put a job out there. Very similar to my mum, posting that job in the newspaper all those years ago. So I was very excited about this, and I could already see it. The team got on board and we created this jobs board. And it goes to show, it's now been working for a while. There's 50 or 60 jobs being posted in the last little while. Workers are responding to those jobs. We're creating matches from that, and creating connection from that. So I'm really excited again as a little example of how the technology can actually create really great opportunities to connect. I wanted to give I've gone through sort of where HireUp's come from and how it works, but I wanted to just give some examples of some people using it, some outcomes that we're seeing. Ben and Tobias is the first example. Ben is a 19-year-old guy in Sydney at university studying to become a teacher. And Tobias is a PhD student and a lecturer at that uni. And so we connected these guys up a little while ago. You can imagine when we're sitting in the office and we saw in quick succession Ben and Tobias's profiles emerge. We realised they were at the same uni and we thought, this is too good to be true. So we picked up the phone and we connected the guys up. They now work together every week. Tobias goes in and sits in lectures with Ben, helping to transcribe his notes, and then they work together afterwards to learn the course content. Ben is now supported by this awesome, Swedish PhD student who all his peers are going, what? How do these guys, connect up? Which is a really wonderful example of how in appropriate place we can connect the right sort of supports that facilitate learning and great outcomes. Another example from New South Wales, my friends Tara and Phoebe. Tara describes herself as someone who loves going to music concerts, watching movies, spending time with her friends and going to cafes and shopping. And Phoebe, who's studying criminal justice and policing, joined the platform, says she believes that all young people have a lot to offer their communities, and through HireUp she can help others to support growth, independence, self-determination. This is an example of two young girls connecting up through the platform who are perfectly suited to one another, and actually they're building this really long and enduring relationship where I got an email from Tara's sister last night just saying you wouldn't believe how good HireUp's been for our family and for Tara, which is amazing to see. When you give people the tools to I guess get what they need and what they want, you actually see really great outcomes. So they're two little examples of how it's all working. HireUp's working for 5-year-old kids as it's working for much older participants, sort of right across the spectrum, which is great. And that sort of brings us to this question, which is the key to a successful relationship through HireUp that we see is an answer to the question, how could it work for you? And really this is the point that I'm so passionate about, that actually the NDIS is an opportunity, is an extraordinary opportunity in many ways. And in relation to what we're doing here with HireUp, actually it's an opportunity for us to move past this idea of thinking about just care or just respite, which for so often was just the end for our family. It was just the point for my brother, was just to go to respite. Actually, the NDIS is this opportunity for us to think about actually what do we want, and with a tool like HireUp, how can we get there? Is it a social coach? Is it a community connector or an educator or mentor like Tobias and Ben? Is it a personal assistant, or is it a music teacher? Like this opportunity we have with the NDIS, I think is an extraordinary one, and with the right sorts of supports, we can make the most of that that opportunity. So that's really, we see the key to the successful relationships running through HireUp are people who understand the answer to that question, which is how does it work for you? HireUp's just a means to an end, and what's that end and how can we help you get there? And we always say to get an answer to that question, if you're unsure, you just contact us, and that's what the HireUp team is all about. We've got a wonderful team of 12 people now in Sydney who are there to help people get an answer to that question. So just in the last little bit, I've got sort of a couple of minutes left, and I just want to reflect on this question. We normally go through a fair few more, and love to chat to anyone after about, because I'm sure lots of people have questions, but just the cost component is a really, really big one for me, and it goes to the heart of, I think, why this innovation is important. This slide just gives a bit of info about it. We essentially say, hi, it's totally free to join. There's no sign-ups or logins or anything like that. If you sign up, we don't hound you or chase you to use it, but it's totally free to join. And it costs $35.50 per hour of support through the week. Of that, workers are paid $29.20, and the $6 in the middle covers workers' compensation insurance and taxes, and Hire Up makes about between $2.50 and $3. I don't know the exact figure. I have to refresh my memory with that, but essentially about sort of $2.50, $60 an hour Hire Up makes, and we're incredibly transparent about that. We believe this online community can work at scale and we can operate on those margins. So the other point is that the costs are all up front. We tell people exactly what it will cost on that booking form before they book it. And the point here is that the NDIS makes available $43.58 here in Canberra at least for an hour of support, which is what people mostly use through the platform. And by using Hire Up, participants will save $8.08 every single hour. And as I say, this is a point I want to reflect on because it goes to the heart of the potential of innovation and the potential of technology. You hear so often providers saying we can't get down to this $43.58 an hour. And we say, well, we think we can because we're doing it. We've not only met that price, but we've dropped it by nearly $8. Every single one of those dollars, every $8 every hour in an individual's package is retained by that individual for either more supports, which is a fantastic use of the resource, or ultimately, hopefully can be retained as a system. This is a way, by embracing this technology, is a way we can avoid those cost blowouts that the media always talk about. It's really hard to get the media to focus on this sort of innovation because it's not, it doesn't suit their agenda. But why I really like to reflect on this is because just as one example of how the technology and the innovation in this, by giving people the tools to manage for themselves, we can create huge efficiencies while giving people choice and control. So that's the piece on the cost saving. I want to finish, I'm right on time here, this is record time for me. I just want to finish with a story about Andrew, who's a good friend of mine in Sydney, and I love to just reflect on this story because again I think it's a very early example of the potential through Hire Up. So Andrew's a young guy. At the start of last year, he and his parents came to catch up with us, and essentially the pitch was Andrew's finishing school, going through that transition period, which is difficult for everyone, and the question was, how are we going to connect Andrew with really fantastic supports and right supports that are going to help him excel? And we're a bit stumped for ideas, and I said, well, I've got this idea I'm trying to build, it's called Hire Up, jump on, and we're going to connect you with someone fantastic, which we did. We connected Andrew with Sarah. We saw Sarah's profile a little bit earlier. So Sarah is, as she said, a bit creative, loves art, loves music. She's sort of like that. She's a real jazz hand, sort of performing arts background. And so the story goes, on the first time they caught up, they were out just trooping around the shops, and Andrew's singing. Andrew's singing away. He sings Italian opera. He loves to sing Italian opera, and he grew up with his granddad teaching him to sing Italian opera. And Sarah said, "You're a brilliant singer." And he said, "Oh yeah, I know," because he's a bit like that. And she said, "Right, we're going busking." And he went, "No way, we're not going busking." Sarah said, "Absolutely, why don't we get out and why don't we go busking?" And Andrew said, no way, there's no chance that we're doing that. Anyway, so the story goes, Andrew that night was the proud new owner of Leichhardt's latest busking licence. And that weekend he was out at the market in Leichhardt. Well, I'll get to that. He was in Leichhardt for the first weekend, and he started busking, and apparently he made $170 in a couple of hours that day. And turns to Sarah and goes, "This is awesome. Let's turbocharge this." So Andrew now busks all around Sydney on the weekends. He busks at the Opera House and at Darling Harbour and at other councils around the place. It's not uncommon for Andrew to make $600 in a weekend from busking. He busks he sings in a couple of different languages, this beautiful Italian opera. And for me, this is just an example of real amazing outcomes when we can connect people appropriately. Sarah is there to provide the support to get Andrew set up. He's then singing and engaging with the community and making money and doing a really great thing. He also uses the platform to, and some supports. He's got some young guys, funnily enough, to take him out to the footy because he's a huge St George Illawarra fan. And he uses other supports to go to the pub and do other great things that young 18-year-old men are interested in doing. And for me, that's a story of how Hire Up can actually connect people to appropriate supports, and how that can then go on to help people realise their goals and really progress in the way that we want to. So that's the pitch for me. Stop the clock, just a little bit after time, but as I say, I just wanted to say a final big thank you for coming and listening to Hire Up today. Love to connect with anyone. Poppy over here.